If you own a Lexus ES300 and you need to have the brakes done, this is going to be the video for you. Welcome back to the Auto Obscure Garage. Chadwick with you again for another installment of Project Lexus Unicorn. That is our 1993 Lexus ES300 that you see behind me. It has a manual transmission, cloth interior, no sunroof. Kind of the coolest spec I think I've ever seen one of these in. And I'm glad to have you back with me, friends. Today is a very important episode because stopping is cool. Stopping is really catching on. People are into it nowadays. This looks like it's been pad slapped at best in recent history, so we're gonna go in there, new pads, new rotors, new fluid, and do it all. I'm gonna do it step by step so you can follow along at home. We're gonna grease the slider pins. There will be no corners cut on this brake job, guys. And this is exactly what you wanna do if you want your ES300 to brake excellently. So let's get in the garage, get a little dirty. And so we start our total brake job on our Lexus ES300. What you're gonna need to do this job is pretty straightforward. Obviously, new rotors and pads. I'm a huge fan of the Power Stop Evolution Coated series. These things rock, they last a long time, they hold up well. Good quality, and a good price point. The matching brake pads go along well with that. You're gonna need some lubricant. Seal Glide's fantastic for lubricating those brake sliders. And then random hand tools is what I usually go with. So like a 1/2-inch ratchet. For the front, you'll need 17 and 14 millimeter sockets. And I like a 4-inch C-clamp for this job to compress the piston back in the caliper. For the rear, you'll need a 14 and 12 millimeter. So basic hand tools can do this job, guys. But here we are at the front. First thing first, we want to take off the actual caliper itself. So we got the 14 millimeter bolts that go on the end of the slider pins. Let's go ahead and remove those at this time. Before you start this step, you want to have a nice jack stand right there to hold that caliper. If not, you can hang the caliper on anything around here. With those two 14 millimeter bolts removed, you can take your caliper off and slide it to the side. There we go. And the little pad metal plate falls right off. That's fantastic. So just kind of prop that up on that stand right there out of the way. Perfect. Now this brake job last done on the car, looks like they slapped new pads on, but they've been on there for a while. There's a lot of corrosion and stuff, and there's lots of pad life left, but the rotors do have some deep lips and grooves in them, indicating that the rotors have been on here way too long. So you get that a lot with cars. They'll do a pad slap, call it a day. But if you're unsure and it's been a while, you might as well do them all at once. They age better together and you'll get more longevity out of it. So at this time we can pull the pads out, and you can see that we do have a good amount of pad life on there, but it's been on there for a while. Next, we want to remove our caliper bracket. That's 17 millimeters. Okay, 17mm bolts have been removed. We can now remove the caliper bracket, which we're going to clean up with a wire wheel because it is pretty crusty. Now the rotor should come off. Now if you live in a crustier area or they've been on there for a while, they can seize to the hub a little bit, so give it some good soft hammer blows or hard hammer blows. Mine's already loosey-goosey, so we'll just pop that right off. Want to hit this area with some brake cleaner. Got our front caliper on the ground here. The slider pins are just in the rear here, behind these bolts. Sometimes they can be a little sticky. Go ahead and slide them out, and you can see these are getting pretty dry. You can see here the old lube has dried on it, making it kind of sticky. This is what can cause sticky caliper feel and eventually cause the caliper to fail if they seize. If you live in an area that has like harsh winters, salt, it can get rusty in here, and that can also cause it to seize. So we're gonna wipe this down with a clean cloth and apply some new lubricant. You wanna make sure you get inside that caliper as well, where we remove the slider pin from right here, and clean in there and get that old lube out too. I'm gonna grab our Glide. This is our caliper slider pin lubricant, and apply it to the pin. You can see our slider pin now is nicely cleaned up, removed all the old grease, nice and shiny. You don't want to put too much on there. And obviously we cleaned in here where the slider pin's gonna go. Now your rubber little boots, if they're ripped or torn in any way, replace them. Super cheap to do. Mine are super pliable and really good condition, so we're gonna reuse them. Again, you don't need a ton of this grease, just enough to cover that pin. And then we're just gonna simply put it back into the slider pin caliper bracket. Make sure the rubber snaps over it. And then we're gonna do the same for this side. Make sure you clean that sliding pin very well. As you will notice, there is a little bit of a metal collar down here on this one. That's why I do them one at a time, so I can't mix them up. My advice to you also, pop out one at a time, clean it, lube it, put it back in. One of these is collared, so you want to make sure you keep that right. But let's put some grease back on here and slide it back in the caliper bracket. Here's our caliper bracket with both slider pins greased and reinserted into the caliper bracket. Time to retract that caliper piston. Easiest way to retract this piston inside the caliper is to balance it on something where it won't fall off every 3 seconds. Grab one of the old brake pads. Grab your 4-inch C-clamp. You're then going to tighten your C-clamp like so, and thus pushing the brake pad against the piston and retracting the piston. Do it so the piston's flat against the back of that caliper. Okay, that looks good. You can go ahead and loosen your C-clamp now. Good to go. Another pro tip is you want to get up under your hood, open your brake fluid reservoir, keep the cap off, put some towels around it, because a lot of times when you retract all your pistons, you can push brake fluid back enough to overflow that, so you don't want that to happen. Shiny new rotor going on. We're going to do it backwards at first, and that's to get off the grease. Sometimes it's come with some packing grease and whatnot, so we're going to give it a little hose down with some brake cleaner here. Flip it around. My nice greasy gloves. And then we're ready to put that caliper bracket back on. Okay, before I actually put the caliper bracket on, I like to secure the disc using a couple of the lug nuts. And that just kind of makes sure everything's gonna stay flat, stay flush. We're then gonna grab our caliper bracket with its fancy new greased up slider pins. When it comes time to put the hardware on your new caliper bracket, you want to pay attention. There's two different types of pieces. There's this one here that has an extra springy part here in the back. That's going to go on the top of the caliper bracket while the regular one goes on the bottom. Let me show you how that is. So you got your caliper bracket. It's going to sit roughly like so, and you're going to put your extra springy one up here. So this guy sit like this. Now, of course, make sure everything's seated in there nicely. You don't want this stuff to be loose. But yeah, it's gonna look like that. So you're gonna get these guys up top. And with our new shiny hardware attached, it's time to put the bracket back on. Now we can install our new pads. Okay, with the pads seated nicely inside the bracket, time to put our caliper back on. With the piston retracted all the way to the back, it should slide over your nice new pads. What you will notice as you tighten your caliper slider bolts here is the whole slider will start to rotate. To counter that, there is a little end of the slider bolt that you can slide a 17mm wrench over, and that will hold it in place so you can torque down that actual slider bolt. You'll also notice that our caliper is pretty dirty compared to our caliper bracket. We'll be taking the wire wheel to that as well. Now we have a nice shiny caliper bracket, new pads, new rotor, slider pins greased. Good stuff. Now let's move to the rear and do those brakes. Here at the rear of the Lexus ES300, pretty much the same setup for the brakes. We're not going to need any fancy tools. 14mm socket, 12mm socket will be the socket sizes you need. We will need a long and narrow flathead screwdriver, and that's going to be for something I'm going to show you right now. So the biggest difference is that these rear brakes have an integral emergency brake, kind of drum and shoe system, very similar to a drum setup that exists inside here. Now to access that, go ahead and rotate your rotor to this little rubber plug is about the 6 o'clock position, so pointing straight down. Obviously have your emergency brake off for that. We're gonna just pry that out. You can do it a number of ways, but I like to just... You're gonna take a flashlight, shine it in this little hole, and you're gonna see a cog gear running from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So think of a rotating cog gear with little teeth on it. You're gonna push that cog gear one direction, and I can't remember off the top of my head. Upper will tighten this, and you'll know you do that because you can no longer spin the rotor freely. Lower, turning it downward at a downward angle, will loosen it so you can spin this rotor more freely. You want to do that because that's going to release the tension on the shoes pushing against the inside of this drum area, and then you'll be able to pull your rotor off. If this is still tight, you will not be able to pull the rotor off. You're going to get a lot of resistance because those shoes are pushing against it. So that's something different. It's really hard to show you. I'll show you what the cog gear looks like once I remove the actual rotor. But before we get there, let's get the caliper off of there. Now what's different is there is a little bracket here that holds the brake line. There's so much tension in the brake line that you can't move the caliper away from the disc. So it's a little 12mm bolt here you can undo. Slide that little bracket off, and then you'll have some extra slack in your brake line. I like to put that little bolt back in, just so we don't lose it. And now taking off the caliper is a little different too, because the sliding pin on the top doesn't exist. It's a pivot arm. So you're actually gonna undo this lower one. Let me zoom out a little bit so I can show you everything going on here. You're gonna undo this lower one, which is also 12mm, and pivot this whole assembly up, and then you can slide it back off the slider pin. The slider pin actually stays attached in this case. It'll make more sense when I show you. So go ahead and get your 12mm. Different about this one too is this bottom bolt is the slider pin as well. So it's a very long bolt. Go ahead and set it to the side. And now, if you're not in a completely rusted, crusted up car, you should be able to pivot your whole caliper up and away, and this is why we needed that slack, why we loosened this bolt. And you should be able to push it back off that top slider pin. Go nice and easy here. There we go. Stand up there to support it, or you can hang it off any of the rear suspension parts. And there we go. Now we have access to the pads, which, again, plenty of meat on this example, but boy, they look old and crusty. The rotors, however, not in great shape. We'll be doing everything, of course. This car deserves it. So to get this top caliper bracket bolt off on the passenger side anyway, it's a pain in the butt because there's a suspension bolt that goes right in the way. It's actually the nut on that suspension bolt. So you can actually pull that suspension bolt out if you need access, or you can get creative. And what I ended up using was a 14mm with a slight extension on a 3/8 inch ratchet. And I was able to get past that bolt, but just so you know, that is a little tricky going in there. They didn't think that one through, did they? Nice crusty bracket, and here's where you can see that slider pin integrated into the bracket, so we'll definitely be cleaning that off and re-greasing it. So if you try to pull your rotor off now, you're gonna see, this is what I was explaining earlier, is it catches. Now you need to go shine a light in here and do the cog trick I showed you, and I'll show you the cog in better detail. All right, I fetched my flashlight and my reading glasses because, I don't know,
Eyes aren't what they used to be. Started to lose my near sight vision in my early 40s now. My mid 40s definitely need them to see anything up close. But you know, that's the beauty of aging, guys. All right, so you shine your light in there. I'm gonna try to push it down first. I think down was the loosening. And it's pretty easy to turn. You can hear it clicking. You can hear that clicking noise. Let's see. Yeah, now see how loose that is? Watch this. Easy peasy. Now let me show you guys up close what that cog looks like and what I just did. And if you guys are here on this channel, it's because we go into detail on all the basic stuff that other folks won't show you how to do. So you can see the cog right here at the end of my screwdriver in there. It's the up and down facing little clock gear there. And what we're gonna do, and what you saw me do, is rotate it downward angle, click, 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 and that loosens those shoes that you see right here and right here, just like an old drum brake setup that controls the e-brake on this vehicle. So even when the e-brake is off, there's still a little tension there. Now, when you go to reinstall your new rear disc, it has that rotor built into it. Go ahead and put that on there, and you might need to tighten it, or it might be self-tightening actually. But either way, if you notice it's catching, you need to loosen it. And if these pads are getting super low, we have a little meat on these pads, so they're good to go. But if you notice these shoes are getting low, you can also replace these. These are a replaceable part. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead, we're good to go now. So let's just clean this up, spray it down with some brake cleaner, and install our new hardware. But that's exactly how that cog works. You just have to line everything up. Time to place our new rotor on. Now, if you're smarter than me, it doesn't take much, you lined up this hole with the hole underneath so you can still access that cog. A couple things you want to do at this point: test your e-brake. Go in the car, pull the e-brake back, make sure this rotor and hub don't still spin. That means your e-brake is too loose. Now go ahead, if you need to tighten it, it's clicking it up. As before we went down, we're gonna go up this time in the little cog in here. Shine your light in there, do that little thing, and once you get it perfect, mine spins freely, which is exactly what you want. Yeah, you don't want it to also be snagging when your e-brake's off, because that means you're gonna be dragging your brakes the whole time. So, new hardware on the caliper bracket. Orientation-wise, you wanna make sure you put these wider sections on the bottom facing part where the pad will lie. They're a little bit wider, as you can see, so you put those there, and the narrow ones up top. Remember our little pin? We're gonna grease that in a little bit too. Speaking of squeezing pistons down, compressing the piston on the rear caliper is exactly the same as the front. On this Lexus, as you can see, there's no special tool. Some cars, more modern, will have a little tool that fits there and you have to twist while you compress. Not the case here, folks. Super easy. Drop your old brake pad in. Now you're gonna grab your lubed up bottom bolt and slide that through. We've got our brake bleeder hooked up, motive power bleeder to bleed the brakes on our Lexus ES300. Now, if you have a friend, you can do the buddy method where someone pumps the brake and you crack the bleeder. That's super cool, but this is the lonely mechanic garage after all, and I'm in here doing it solo, so a little pressure bleeder like this goes a long way. I like to use about 15 PSI of pressure, pressurize the system, and then we'll crack all the valves. The order to crack those bleeding valves does matter. It's furthest from the brake booster. So we're gonna go passenger rear, driver rear, passenger front, driver front, in that order. So right rear, right front, left front. That's the correct order. You want to do it in that order, getting out any bubbles that might be in the system and all that old fluid we're going to flush out. I did fill my power bleeder with some delicious Valvoline .3 and 4 synthetic brake fluid. It's good stuff, works great, going to be perfect for the vehicle. So periodically come back and check on this to make sure it's holding pressure and not empty, because if you start pushing air through your system, you get to bleed the system all over again. Let's go to that passenger rear and see what we're working with. Now we got to hook our brake bleeder up to the passenger rear. Take off your little rubber bleeder valve cover here. These can be on there pretty good. I need an 8mm to crack that loose, so we want to go ahead and put him on there first. Slide it down, then we're going to put our little bleeder hose over the valve. Make sure it sits very tightly, or you can actually add more air to the party, which you don't want to do. And with pressure at the front for our brake bleeder motive system, we can just crack this loose and we should see the fluid start to flow through here. been a while. There we go, nice thick brown fluid coming out. It's been a while since this system's been bled, clearly. So we're gonna let that run, no air, so that's awesome. These brakes didn't have any issues like that, but it's more just a maintenance thing to get fresh fluid in there. Oh my God, it's moving like molasses though. We'll let that flow until it's nice and honey clear. You'll see it start to go in my little collection bottle there. And once it's clear, close that valve up, move on to the driver rear. Once your brake fluid starts flowing nice and honey clear, we can go ahead and close that valve up. Pull our little hose off. Gonna wanna clean up any drippage you have here. Brake fluid is super nasty stuff. Put our little rubber cap back on. I'll see you at the driver rear. You guys know the drill. Driver rear, same thing. Crack it loose, let the brown stuff come out. Passenger front time. Let's keep the good times rolling. Crack this one loose. You're at the driver's front. It's our last caliper to bleed. Let's go ahead and break it loose. A little easier than the last one. Boy, that fluid's nice and dark though. Let's get it out of there. Our fluid is flowing quite cleanly now. Let's go ahead and seal this back up. What do you guys think? That brake fluid is looking nice and dark. So that's what was in our nice Lexus ES300. Yeah, you can't do a brake job and not change this stuff out. That's just wild. But yeah, nice and motor oil black, as I like to call it. So we can relax the pressure on our bleeder at this point. Nice and easy, nice and slow. Try not to hit your face, of course. Cool. And then we're gonna, as we relieve that pressure, clean up any spillage we had. Make sure the reservoir is at the appropriate level, max out. If there's any more, go ahead and just drain it with like a turkey baster or something like that. And if you need to add more, add a little more fluid. Make sure it's topped off. That's all for the brake bleeding procedure. Now mechanically, you want to go ahead and drive your car after this, so lower it back down, pump the brakes a few times before you head out. But do some good braking, you know, go up to like 45 miles an hour, slow down to almost a near stop. Keep doing that, and that'll beat in the new brakes, the new pads and discs, and you'll be golden. You'll have a great braking Lexus ES300, probably better than it's ever felt under your ownership. So that's it, guys. Complete brake system, done on our Lexus ES300.